Welcome, everybody. Can you see me? Can you see me all right? Let me know where you're coming from today. We're going to be doing some somatic meditation. And sometimes you'll see me from over here. I don't know when this is going to show up, but then sometimes you're going to see me from over here. And we're going to go for about 30 minutes or so. And we're going to get you out of your head and into your body. All right, we got Molly from Oklahoma, Maria from the UK, Nydia, I hope I'm saying that correctly, from Monterrey, Mexico, Toronto, Canada, Oregon, Dallas, Texas. Welcome, everybody. So, it has been a year or two since I've done one of these. A lot has changed. If you are new, let me introduce myself. My name is Andrew Daniel. I am the author of this book, Awaken to Your True Self, Why You're Still Stuck and How to Break Through. And I am the founder and director of the Center for Somatic Development. And this somatic meditation practice comes from the work we do in Somatics. So that's just a quick intro of myself because I'm sure you guys want to get started into this. So I will give a brief little introduction of what somatic meditation is, what makes it different, and we will get you guys moving and feeling. All right? If you have any questions as we go, just put them into the chat, and I will be happy to answer them. And after about maybe 15 or 20 minutes of movement, of meditation, we will go and end in a Q&A and group discussion. So you can share what happened for you, what's going on for you, and if you have any questions, comments, discussions. All right? So what is somatic meditation? Well, let me see. We have a question already. How is your camera quality so clear? It looks great. Thank you very much. I am in my professional studio, part of Somatics. The word is Somatics. Part of that comes from cinema, and somatics of the body. And so what we do in Somatics is we use movement and video to help people see these subconscious patterns of their psychology, of their energy, of their emotions in their body for themselves. So we would do something like we're going to do today, a somatic movement, and film them with this camera. So this is a high-end cinema camera, and we will record them doing certain kind of movements, dancing, handshaking. We have all sorts of diagnostics, slacklining. And then we play that video back, and through that playback of the video, I facilitate feedback and help them see the subconscious patterns that run their life, the myths, the stories, the somatic archetypes that run them. And they get to see all of that for themselves in their own body on the video. So part of an intro, part of also letting you know what I do and answering the question. So this is one of the cameras that we use in the studio, in the center, doing the somatic work. So there you go. What we're going to be doing today is a derivative of that somatic process of somatic meditation. So what is somatic meditation, and what makes it different from regular meditation, and how can it help you? So let's just start with what regular meditation typically is. Now, for many of you here on Insight Timer who are probably anywhere from beginner to pro meditators, perhaps teachers yourself, a lot of the practices involve the mind, the quieting of the mind, the stilling of the mind, but so often it's using the mind to stop the mind. And that can work for some people, and that's great. I do forms of that. But one of the greatest challenges is you're using the mind to stop the mind often. And it's like using the ego to stop the ego, right? The ego says, "Hi, I'm the ego. I've heard egos are bad, so let me help you get rid of your ego." But that's the ego saying it. So what we do instead is that we completely bypass the whole rational thinking part of meditation, and we just get out of the head and into the body. So this is not about thinking. This is not even about stopping thinking. This is about moving and feeling. So somatic meditation is dropping out of the head, getting into the body, and using movement and or feeling-based practices to find that stillness, to rediscover that silence. And it's the stillness and silence that surrounds Om, right? It's the fourth consonant of Om. A, U, M. The fourth consonant, the fourth sound is a no sound. The fourth part of Om is actually the silence and the stillness that surrounds it. That is the void. That is the source. That is where we come from and where inevitably we will all go back into. Whatever that is for you, it is that stillness and silence. From all matter and movement and energy comes. And what we're going to be doing is, in a way, accessing that. Not through anything woo-woo, new age, or metaphysical, but just through the body. Just by dropping into the body, we're going to have time and space to feel the truth of what's happening within us. All right? So what this is going to look like is I will be guiding you through a process. You can sit down. So now's the time to sit. You can stand as well. It's perfectly fine to stand or lay down. So if you are already set, just take a few breaths, relax. If you're just joining us, please take a seat or stand or lie down in a comfortable position. You will be moving, so don't get too cozied up. Don't hide under a blanket and constrain yourself. You want some space to move. And so because I haven't done this in a long time, and I assume most of you haven't done this with me before, we're just going to do it very basic this time. And if you like this kind of thing, please let me know, and I'll do more of these. All right, so let's just take a few deep breaths together. You can breathe with me. There's no special magical way here. We're just breathing, all right? Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. And one more. Hold. Exhale. Great. So why don't we start with the feet? The feet is a great place to start to get us grounded. Many people have different versions of what grounded and centered is. There's grounding and earthing electromagnetically. There's a spiritual grounding. When I say grounding, I mean getting out of the head into the body and connecting to the earth internally, energetically. So instead of visualizing getting into your head even more and coming up with words and mantras and things like this, I'd like you to just stop. Become aware of your body and bring your attention to your feet. And furthermore, your toes. This process, this somatic meditation, is all about feeling. You do not have to think about anything. If thoughts come up, that is fine. There's no pressure, nothing to freak out about. Just bring your attention back to feeling. And that could be a sensation, right? You could have a sensation, kinesthetic kind of feeling, like an actual skin sensation of feeling. Or you will have an emotional feeling, or just feeling. Whatever that is, it's okay. Everything is to guide you into this feeling place, whether it's a physical sensation, a psychic sensation, energetic sensation, an emotional sensation. Keep oriented towards feeling. So begin to wiggle your toes. Just wiggle your toes. I'm going to be doing this here. You can't see my toes here. But I am wiggling my toes. And one of the things that you may notice as you wiggle your toes is that if you pull them up off the ground, so your toes are facing you, there is going to be a disconnect. And oftentimes the feeling of lifting your toes off the earth, off the ground, can lead to almost a feeling of hysteria, because you're pulling away from the support and connection of the earth. Now, what we want to do, what we get to do, how we get to play in this is through exploring. Now, what if you do the opposite? Try the opposite. So your toes are pulled up. They're pulling away from the earth. Now, dig them down. Dig them towards the earth. If your feet are on the floor, that is great. Feel the earth. Feel the floor. Feel your socks. Feel your shoes. Whatever's there. Almost imagine yourself digging into the earth. If you're lying down, you can engage your imagination a bit and just feel your feet digging down. And then as your feet and toes are down, almost bring them into a clawing kind of position where your toes are clawed into the earth, and just hold it for a few seconds. Make sure you don't hold your breath. Right now, relax. And so take a few seconds here and go back and forth between lifting your toes off the earth towards you and then bringing them back into the earth, digging into the earth. Now, there is no judgments here. If you notice a judgment, if you notice emotions, if you notice any feelings, just tell the truth. Just report the details. You do not need to do anything with them. You do not need to judge them. You do not need to get rid of them. You do not need to indulge in them. Just simply become aware. Now, one of the first times I did this, I started clawing at the earth. And the feeling and emotion that came up for me was a sense of not having. So immediately this image of being in the crib and having a blanket that I was unable to reach, that image and that memory, that feeling came up through me just taking my toes and sort of digging them into the earth like you're putting them in the sand. You may have a similar experience. You may have nothing. There is no point in any of this except to feel. So there is no pressure. There is no performance. If something comes up, stay with it. Go into it. You can put my voice aside and go into whatever is coming up with you and explore that. That's perfectly fine. In fact, if you get some sort of healing or release from this, even better. So take a few more moments wiggling your toes. You can break out of that pattern. So that back and forth pattern, you can stop that. Just kind of free wiggle. And then begin to feel the rest of your feet. If your feet are on the floor, which I do recommend if you're lying down. You can place your feet on the floor. If not, you can just imagine it. With your feet on the floor, if you have socks or shoes on, you may take them off. You keep them on, it's fine. But what I want you to do is to get as much of your feet on the floor as possible. All right? So if this is the floor and this is your feet, you don't want it like this. You want it flat, right? You want to keep it flat. You want to get as much feet as you want. As much feet as you want to get on the floor. And so just feel that connection. Now you're going to have the arch. You do not collapse the arch. So maintaining your arch, let me clarify, maintaining that arch, if you have one, get all your toes connected to the ground, your heel, all of it. And so what I'm going to invite you to do for the next 15 minutes or so, if your feet are on the floor, if not, that is fine, is to keep them here. So this has been a life-changing practice for me and a few of my clients. Now, it seems silly that I could sit here and say, keeping my feet connected to the floor for any amount of time is going to change my life. But it is true. Because what I discovered is that for decades of my life, anytime I did not want to feel something emotionally, I would pull my toes off the earth. I would disconnect from the earth. Now, you may find you're solid and grounded, and you just are plugged in and sucked into that earth. Great. Or you may find that, like me, many times there was something uncomfortable, a feeling of anxiety, of fear, of dread, of guilt, of shame, of discomfort, of fear, of maybe even joy, maybe even pleasure. When it got too much for you to handle or feel, your toes, your feet pull off the earth. This is what I refer to as leaks, right? These are ways for the energy to leak out. And up until this point, you may have needed that, right? Up until this point, that may have been a strategy for you to be able to cope and handle and deal with intense emotions. But what I've discovered is that the longer you do that and the more you keep doing that, the more that pattern builds and the more you disconnect from the earth and the more you are avoiding feeling what you don't want to feel. One of the things that I say in my book is that our relationship to feeling is everything. And so many people are either addicted to feeling terrible and bad, or they're addicted to feeling good. And in a lot of healing work and positive psychology, it's about feeling good. This work, somatic meditation, somatics, it is not about feeling good. It is about feeling. Feeling is the most important thing. So as you keep your feet on the ground, as I'm speaking here, right? As I'm speaking here, you're keeping your toes, all of your toes on the ground. Do not lift them up. Do not lift your feet up. Keep them on the ground. Start paying attention to what sensations arise in your body. If for 5 minutes here, you're normal, you're still, you're quiet, everything's great, you are doing awesome. Like, that is amazing. It took me months to be able to get to that place. If you notice yourself starting to freak out, right? Yeah, right? I gotta go. You gotta run, right? I gotta avoid it. I gotta pull out. I can't maintain this. What is happening is that you are pulling away from love. You are pulling away from support. You are pulling away from the data, the information, the love, the lessons, the feeling of the earth and of your body in what is happening for you. So rather than avoiding, rather than running away, rather than having it leak out by lifting away, rather than disconnecting from the thing that is giving you life, that is supporting you and loving you, your body and the earth, my invitation, if you are ready, is to stay in it, to go into it. So today is about our feet and connecting to the earth and getting grounded and letting that support nourish us. And we do that very practically. We don't need to imagine that we're trees or magical beings or that there's any of this stuff going on. All you have to do is keep your feet on the ground. See how long you can keep your toes on the ground without pulling up. If this is something that will help you, you will be amazed at how much you want to get those toes off the ground. The first time I did this, I said to myself, I'm just going to keep my toes on the ground for 10 minutes. That's got to be easy. It's got to be so easy. I'm just keeping my toes on the ground. I mean, what is this about? This is a joke. Come on, give me a break. Within a few minutes, I wanted to run. I was like, get me out of here. My body was panicking. It felt like a threat. Now, keep in mind, understand, all you're doing is keeping your feet on the earth, on the ground. There is no threat. You are safe, right? There's no abuse. There's no danger. There's no threat. You are simply keeping your feet connected to the earth. If you are feeling those things, that is revealing something very important for you, right? If you're feeling like I felt, like, get me out of here. All I want to do, panic, red alert, get my feet off the ground. That shows that there is something there, right? I don't know what it is for you. This is a public meditation. I don't know exactly what that could or would be for you, but there is something, right? So if we presuppose that being connected to the earth and keeping our feet on the ground is and should be something that is healthy and normal, practical, and available to all of us that have feet, this should not be something that causes anxiety. This should not be something that causes panic. This should not be something that brings up all the stuff for us. Should, right? I say should, as in, if there was no trauma, if there was no nothing there, this is a normal part of being a human. So if it does, it is an indicator. It is a light that says there is something here for you. So remember, there's no judgment. There's no good or bad or right or wrong. It's just, okay, all right, this guy's been talking for 5-10 minutes while I've been keeping my feet on the ground. How relaxed am I? How at peace am I? How still am I? Just take a minute. Feel what arises in your body when your feet are flat, connected to the earth. What arises in your body when you take 10 or 15 minutes to choose consciously with your will to not lift your toes off the ground or out of your socks or out of your shoes. If nothing arises, if this is perfectly fine, then enjoy. It's not a test, right? This is a way of being. Enjoy. Enjoy the connection. Enjoy being plugged into the earth. Enjoy being in your body. Bring your attention there, into your feet, into the earth. If it does bring up stuff for you, notice what that is. Notice if there's sensation, if there's anxiety, if there's panic. There may be even pleasure, right? It may bring or activate some past memory of being somewhere enjoyable. Whatever it is, be with it. Feel it. Be present with it. And I encourage you to stay with it. Because the first time I did this, the first 5 minutes, I was like, get me out of here. Why is this so hard? This is crazy. within 10 minutes, I started feeling nauseous. I do not know how to explain it or how to rationalize it. All I knew is that by keeping my feet and toes on the ground for 10 minutes straight, I felt the panic, I felt the anxiety, and I started to feel nauseous. I realized in that moment, this was, I think, 6 years ago, I realized in that moment I had been pulling away from the earth, that I had not actually had my feet on the ground in life. That was during a time where I was homeless and sleeping around on couches. Oh my God, all right, there is some symbolic connection between keeping your feet on the ground, right? You've heard these things. Get out of the clouds, get your feet on the ground, come back to your earth, ground. Well, that was literal. That was real for me. And so I saw that my nervous system was literally reorienting itself to staying connected to the earth by keeping my feet down. And so through that process, it allowed me to start confronting over time those stories, those patterns that caused me to avoid that feeling, to disconnect, right? To pull off and out from the earth. And so this is something that you can practice. Whether it is bringing anything up for you or not, this is a practice that you can do. How much can you keep your toes connected onto the earth? How long can you stay grounded? So, if you need to move, right, you're standing up, well, slide, right? How can you go into the earth? How can you move? This could be fun. You could try this right now if you're standing. How can you move around the space? If you're sitting, right, move your feet around. How can you move around, right? You're going to slide them, right? You could crawl them, right? You can use your toes crawling forward, right? So these are all patterns. These are all evolutionary patterns that are within ourselves, that is within our DNA. All of these ways of moving, right? There's creatures in the world that move like this. There's creatures in the world that just slide, creatures in the world that walk. And so when you can stay connected while you're still, and then you can stay connected while you slide and move around while actually physically maintaining that connection. Then the next thing is how to maintain that connection and stay grounded and plugged in as you walk, as you go about your day and your life. Now, what is the practicality of this? So I'm going to finish speaking here, and you can take the remainder of this time to just explore. Explore your feet, explore your toes, right? Explore moving them around, explore keeping them still and connected. Feel them. If you cannot feel your feet, if you feel completely dissociated and disconnected from them, this is going to be an amazing exercise for you. This is going to be a very, very helpful somatic meditation for you to practice. Get out of your head. Stop thinking about it. Stop analyzing it. Stop all the noise up here. Just drop down. Just feel your feet. If you're really struggling, take your hands. Actually feel them with your fingers. Bring your awareness. You can poke them, tap them, rub them, whatever it is. Bring your actual physical touch down there. Anything that you can do to bring your attention, to bring your feeling and focus into your feet will be very helpful. I had a client that came in for an intensive. And this client was just, every time I gave them feedback, every time something they didn't want to feel came up, they pulled their feet off the earth and started wiggling their hands, right? The hands are another way. Another meditation we can do is around the hands, keeping the hands still, connecting the hands. Very different than the feet, but the hands are also a very common place where we leak out this energy rather than containing it and feeling it and processing it, transmuting it. So every time something would come up for him emotionally, this client, he would just, the feet would lift up and go and he'd get fidgety and all this stuff. I became aware of it and I said, stop. Get your feet on the ground. Keep your feet and toes plugged into the earth. Take your hands, put your hands on your lap, on your legs. Keep them still. Do not wiggle your fingers. Now, keeping this stillness, now listen to me. Now speak. Now feel the feedback. It was amazing. He had one of the biggest breakthroughs of his life. Because what happened is that stillness did not allow all of that energy to leak out. And instead, it sort of forced, in quotes, right, forced him to feel it, to look at it. Well, he's a client. That's what he's there to do. And so this is a way to help him stop abandoning himself. Every time you disconnect from the earth, every time you pull your toes up to avoid feeling something that you don't want to feel, you are betraying yourself. Right? It's a tiny, tiny, tiny form of self-betrayal because that feeling is there for you. It is you, right? It's not about feeling good. It's not about avoiding bad feelings. It is about feeling, right? You want to feel everything. Doesn't mean indulge in it. It doesn't mean use it to suffer. It doesn't mean get addicted to it. It doesn't mean any of this stuff. It means be present, feel it. It is there for you. So just from my client keeping his feet on the ground and toes on the ground and his hands still, he was finally able to face all of those things that in the sessions prior, he was unwilling and able to face. Tremendous breakthroughs. He starts crying, releasing, right? All of this kind of stuff. And just getting the body still to be present with what is resulted in some of the biggest breakthroughs of his life. It changed his life. It changed my life, right? Keeping my toes on the ground. That one time I told you about, the first time I did this, it changed my life. I was homeless multiple times before then. I made it a commitment of keeping my toes and feet connected to the earth. I have never been homeless since. I've never lived out of my car. I've never been on the streets. I've never relied. Well, I've relied, but I've never been homeless since. And I attribute it greatly to this practice. Because think about this logically, practically, right? Your feet are on the ground. You're connected to the earth. You're solid. You're supported, right? So take another minute here and we're going to wrap up. And then we'll have some time and space to do some Q&A, discussion, reporting of what you experienced, what you went through. Are we gripping our toes or just letting the foot relax on the floor? Sorry, I just saw that. I know that's about 6 minutes ago. You're doing either. You're doing both, right? The gripping is to explore. What is that like to hold on to the earth? Some people cling, right? Some people are terrified, and so they're gripping life, right? They're scared of letting go of the earth. And so they're clinging on, they're clawing like a falcon has its claws into a tree. So that's another energy, right? That's somebody who's terrified of letting go, of trusting themselves in the world and being supported, for example. So in the beginning, the exercise was to explore these, right? Pull them off, feel what it's like to completely disconnect from the earth, and then claw in and grip in and explore that. Once you get the sensation, right? Once you have reference points of what it feels like to get hysterical and pull off and go, ah! And then you also have a reference point of digging in and getting into the earth and just really getting into it. Then you explore that range. Then you play with it until you find a place, not mentally, but through feeling. What's that feeling where your feet are alive, they're turned on, your toes are all connected to the earth, your soles are connected to the earth? And there's a communication, right? There's literally a communication. Now you can get metaphysical about it if you like, or you can just think scientifically and practically, right? There's sensations at the bottom of your feet, send a message to the rest of your body, your brain. There is literally this communication of your nervous system back and forth. How do you keep that alive, right? You may just end up getting stiller and stiller, right? You may be doing this and then eventually get still. But right, even in the stillness, you can just do very small, just little pings, just little breaths, right? Your feet. Just in the beginning, you just may need to do these little, tiny micro movements to keep your attention down there. Because if you just freeze them, freezing doesn't work either. Because then you're going to be in this another form of hysterics, frozen fight or flight, shut off, numb off place. So freezing them isn't going to work either. Try it. See what happens. You're going to feel, right? It's just you're stuck, you're stiff, you're frozen. It's about stillness, right? It's not about going limp, right? You still want energy there. You still want your toes and your feet to be alive, to be present, to be active, but they're still, right? So these are all things, seemingly paradoxes, definitions, semantics. As you explore this more in your body, you're going to develop these somatic definitions, right? The more you do this, you're going to have a new reference point of being connected to the earth, of being grounded, which may be different than the definition you've had in your mind beforehand. This is going to be a much more functional way where you literally are practically plugged into the earth. Now, eventually, as you do it, you're able to maintain that connection. Your body is in that feeling. So even if you're wearing shoes, you can still have the sensation, right? Even if you are in a high-rise building, you're still connected to the earth through the floor, right? It's still symbolically and represented in your body that way. All right? All right, so just take another minute here, wrap up, and we will move to Q&A. So bring that awareness, if it still isn't, bring it back into your feet. Wiggle your toes. Wiggle your toes. Be grateful that you have toes. If you do not have toes, be grateful for what you do have. Whatever it is, find a way to be grateful. Find a way to feel blessed. Right? Some people don't have toes. So if you do, right, it's something to be grateful about. If you're living your life and just you're at the bottom of life, there's always something to be grateful for. So I really like to conclude these meditations in gratitude. So thank you for joining. We're getting back on this bandwagon. It's been a year since I've done this. So I wanted to keep it very simple. And we just worked on the feet. We just meditated through grounding and feet connection. Doesn't sound too exciting. It doesn't sound terribly amazing and advanced. But if you can't keep your feet and toes on the earth, you are going to struggle doing anything more than that. So it's a really great place to start. Foundational place. Does not mean it's beginner, does not mean it's easy, does not mean it's something you skip over, right? It's foundational. It's something that you always are doing. I figured this out, I think 6 or 7 years ago. I'm still doing it. It's still something. I remind myself, all right, keep your toes on the ground. So this is something you can take with you your whole life. Anytime that you're experiencing intense emotions, instead of lifting your toes off the ground and trying to escape from it and run away from it, invite yourself, get your toes back onto the earth, keep all your toes onto the ground, and keep them there until you're able to move through that emotion, until you're able to move through that circumstance. You may find that Fatima says, feel confidence to keep feet on the ground. Yeah, keep your feet on the ground. It will help in your confidence. You will be more solid. You will have literally the support of the entire earth, the entire planet will be underneath you. That is keeping you up. That is keeping you alive. So, we have finished the meditation part of this call. I will stick around for a few more minutes and answer anybody's questions. Feel free to share in the chat your experiences. I think many people will have many different kinds of experiences, and through your sharing, you can be a great teacher as well. All right. Darina, I hope I'm saying your name correctly. That's a new one, Darina. That's very beautiful. Just curious, how did you find somatic therapy? How did I find it? Well, I did just about everything. NLP, hypnotherapy, Reiki, plant medicines, psychedelics, network chiropractic, oh my God, just EFT, just endless. 10 years of doing work on myself. And then I was homeless twice, and I still things weren't working. Despite having a software company, despite all these things. I share about my journey and story in the book more. But it was a time in my life where I did everything else that I could. Every mental positive affirmation, every clearing and canceling and healing limiting beliefs, past life, timeline therapy, eye movement, tapping, everything I could think of. And for some reason, my life still wasn't working. And really the last frontier was the body. And so I met a mentor and various people that introduced me to embodiment. And it was like, oh, I've got all this brilliant ideas up here, but it's not in my body, right? I know all this stuff, and it's pretty good stuff, but I can't affect the world. How come I can't take what's up here and actually make money from it and help people and reach people and have a home, like have things, like live, pay my rent, despite learning and healing for a decade? And I came to understand and realize and experience, and after about 5 years, eventually break through, that it was literally not having these things in my body. My body was holding the stories, the memories, the traumas, the beliefs, the archetypes, the myths that ran my family and culture. Those were actually in my body. And seeing my body move on video, right, through cinesomatics, seeing myself on video, and it being very different than what I expected it to be, right? Seeing myself on video, thinking, oh, I'm a cool dude, and then seeing myself on video being fake and trying to put on a mask and hiding out and being narcissistic. It's like, whoa. All right, so this image I have in my head of who I am is very different, even after 10 years of therapy and healing, than I thought. Okay, well, the body doesn't lie, right? So my results, my bank account, all tell me that that matches with how I was seeing myself in my body. Okay, all right, well, that's the truth. And so I started to orient myself more to the truth, and the truth of what was revealed in reality, in the reality of my body, and finding out that what was in my head, how I saw myself in my mind, was not the reality. It was a fantasy. And I was hiding up there. I was hiding up in my mind, programming on my computer, on my phone, hiding out from life, from reality, trying to live in this fantasy that, ooh, I knew all these spiritual truths. Oh, look at me. I know this stuff. Meanwhile, my real life and bank account and everything was just going down. So, yeah, it was through this process of getting back into my body and discovering what was in my body, the archetypes, not just the physical stuff, but the energetic, emotional, mental things that were behind my movement. And through that and an incredible journey, I was finally able to break through all of that stuff and embody all of these teachings and wisdom that I learned in my mind, embody it in my body, and be able to show up in the world and actualize it, right? It's about actualizing it. You can know it. The difference between knowing it and actualizing it and manifesting it in the world is a very different process. And I've come to discover that process can only happen through the body, right? If I want to pick up this glass, I have to do it with my body. Yes, it starts in the mind. Yes, you have to have a great mindset. Yes, this has to know what's going on. But it's the body that actually puts everything into time and space where your real results are. And so through somatic meditations, through movement, through cinesomatics, I was able to heal that and to wake up and discover these things. And then I took everything I learned in that journey and wrote this book, Awaken to Your True Self, Why You're Still Stuck and How to Break Through, because I was stuck. Still stuck after a decade of all of those other modalities. And then doing this, it was like, whew, just completely different. So thank you for asking. I hope that answers your question. All right. I felt nervous moving my feet after a while of not moving them. Oh, that's very interesting. So what do you think that is? All right. So you don't move them and you're nervous. All right. So what you want to do is also think about your life. Where in your life does that kind of behavior or pattern show up, right? Is there any place in your life where you get still and stationary, either practically or metaphorically, and then starting up again, you get nervous, right? Maybe you stop studying, something for a few years, then you start studying it again, and then you're not quite sure. So these are just examples of the body is holographic and fractal. So these things can represent stuff. Sometimes it's literal and practical, just feeling weird in your body. And then sometimes it's also metaphorical, symbolic, like this shows up elsewhere. How you do one thing's how you do everything, right? How you do anything is how you do everything. As above, so below. Part of what we're working on here, which is more advanced, is understanding that the way you move in your body reflects in some way. It's not always obvious at first, but it does reflect in some way how you move through your life. And that is the secret that changed my life and helped me wake up. All right. I started burping, which I know for me is releasing suppressed emotions. Thank you for the session. Great. So Maria says that she has, great. So you release some suppressed emotion. That's wonderful. Molly donated. Thank you very much, Molly. I really appreciate that. Thanks for sticking around. Nadia said, after the stillness, had the second I could lift only my big toe, got super excited. Great. You're welcome. Molly says, could you potentially heal from childhood trauma without therapy using this? Using just the feet exercise, or what I'm speaking of, the whole somatic embodiment piece? The whole thing. Yes, absolutely. That's what I did. Yeah, all my clients come in and there is, they have massive, pretty much, I don't know any client that comes in that doesn't have some sort of trauma in some way. And most of them, it's pretty intense. And a lot of them not even aware that it's like, they don't even realize that their parent neglected them for 15 years and that's actually a trauma. Like they just, like a lot of people don't even realize it. They're just like, yeah, I'm dead and disconnected from life, and none of my relationships work. I don't know why. It's like, well, we find out that, well, maybe it's because, you were neglected in your childhood. So absolutely. I mean, we work with some of the deepest, heaviest trauma. People that do trauma work elsewhere and don't get results come here. Like this is some of the most advanced work there is. I also say that because it's very confronting. So it is not beginner level work because you're actually going in the body, you're feeling and facing these things. After most people spending decades avoiding, suppressing, and denying these things that have happened. But once you actually do it and face it, you actually have real healing. It actually works. And then not only do you get that healing, but you get all the wisdom, right? You get the lessons, right? This stuff is still here in us, running us, because we haven't learned the lesson yet. There's something there to teach us. And if we just wave a magic wand, say some spell or whatever it is, and then we just magically get rid of all of our pain, that can be helpful, right? That's going to alleviate you of pain, but you're not going to grow from it. You're going to miss out on the lesson. You're going to have a high likelihood of that repeating in some way again in the future because it doesn't create wisdom. It doesn't develop your discernment. And so this work, again, is very advanced and confronting because it's about feeling it. Every client that comes in, including myself, it's all about feeling. We want to feel everything. Feeling is going to teach us. It's going to tell us. It's going to inform us. It has all of the answers. But you have to look at it. You got to face it. You got to go into it. And it requires great courage. And not everybody is ready, and that is okay. But for the people that are ready, it is amazing. And you're free to check out some of the testimonials on my website of people that come in and they've done everything and they're at the end. And they are incredible inspirations because they had the courage to do this kind of work that most people don't. And everything in their life changed. And it's wonderful, very inspiring. All right. Dorina says, thanks for sharing. I've tried a bunch of different therapeutic modalities without as much progress. I'd want it as well so I can empathize. Yeah. A lot of stuff out there doesn't work. Just to be absolutely frank, a lot of it doesn't work, or if it does, it's very slow, or a lot of the practitioners don't have the same degree of mastery as the people that made them. Like there's a lot of things that work very well for the people who created them because they're the masters of it. But if you just certify somebody in a weekend and then they go off, they can help people and that's fine and that's okay. But 15 years of mastery and doing the inner work is going to create a very different facilitation than somebody that's learned something in a weekend. You got to start. You got to, I started at a weekend. I did that too, 15 years ago. So yeah, and everything serves, right? Everything serves, even what doesn't. So even the things that didn't get me to where I ultimately wanted to go still got me to where I ultimately wanted to go, right? They were a part on my path. But I was still very frustrated because it was a lot of money and a lot of time, and it only moved me a little bit. And then I did all of that, and then I was homeless. So it's like, come on. Like there's something else, right? There's something missing. And one of the things that does make cinesomatics different is that it is not just healing. It's also about high functionality, right? It's not just about overcoming the trauma, healing, and feeling better. It's also about, well, how do you actually make more money? How do you actually have more intimacy? How do you actually have better relationships? How do you actually, now that you've healed your pain and wounds from the opposite sex, right? How do you actually relate to them? What do you actually do? All right, you've healed your money wounds. Great. Doesn't mean you now know how to make a lot of money. With cinesomatics, we help with that side as well. It's both of it, because that embodiment piece is what's going to get you the results. So not only do we show you in your body the stuck stories and the myths and the archetypes that are creating your pain, but also how they're keeping you small and stuck. And through your own body, you get to discover how to show up bigger. You get to discover for yourself in your own way how to relate to men and women differently, how you can become more vulnerable and surrender and have greater intimacy, how you, in your way, can stop playing small and allow yourself to take up more space and shine your light bigger. So it's both, right? Self-help and personal development doesn't help you healing anything. And then the healing work doesn't necessarily help you become more functional in life. This is the only thing I've really seen that through a single process works on both simultaneously. So there you go. Yes, somatic experiencing has changed my life. Excellent. Great. Thank you so much. This is very exciting. I'd love for you to do more sessions here on Insight Timer. Also check out your book and website. I'd love to do more of these as well. Excellent. Great. Well, then we will do that. The more we get people doing this and the more that we explore this stuff together, the more we can get into some juicy stuff. So we'll organically, it'll just, we'll see how it goes. What you guys want is what I'll do. I have a business where I'm running workshops and clients and group work and privates and all this stuff. And that's great. But what I love about this is that there's an emergence, right? You guys call forth as a group, as participants, what you need. And so it forces me to show up in a new way. It forces and invites me to explore what's real with you. So after we do this more for a bit, what those things are will start revealing themselves, right? There might be a lot of people that say, hey, I need help with anxiety. Or, hey, can you do more on the feet thing? Or, hey, I've done enough feet stuff. Let's do some hand stuff, whatever it is. We have dozens and dozens and dozens of different meditations to do here. So if this wasn't your cup of tea, but you're still curious and interested, stick around, come and do a few more. We have all sorts of different ways to do this. This isn't how everyone looks. This is just the one I started with after coming back on hiatus for a year. So, all right. Well, thank you guys. We are just about at the hour, according to my watch here. I appreciate you taking time out of your Saturday to join me. Many of you for the first time, not knowing who the heck I am. That means a lot. You could have done so much with your time, but you chose to be here. You chose to be with us, myself, and yourself. You chose to show up for yourself and give yourself time and space to feel and to get in your body and reconnect to the earth. So I'm grateful for that. And be sure to join the group here on Insight Timer. There's an Andrew Daniel group. Follow me. You'll get notified of these more. So once again, my name is Andrew Daniel. I am the author of this book, Awaken to Your True Self, and the director at the Center for Somatic Development. I will also be posting this replay. So I have a replay and clips channel on YouTube. So check out my website. If you want a replay of this, I'll be posting all these replays on a separate channel if you ever want to revisit them. All right. Thank you guys so much. Have a fantastic weekend. And in a few weeks, we'll see you for another one. Take care.